This is episode 46 of the Fitness Plus Technology podcast with Leon Rudge, the Director of Digital Experience at Life Fitness.
The raising awareness is always number one, because if you don't have the business on board, then you're really going to struggle. That goes right to the top, right to the C-suite. If you don't have your leadership team on board, and if you don't have the senior teams on board, then you're really going to struggle to create any change within a business. You're going to struggle to get the backing or the support to be able to create a digital transformation strategy. So it's absolutely essential that you get that senior team on board. So it's kind of bottom up, top down.
Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. I am your host, Josh Trent, and this is your number one trusted resource for the accelerating world of fitness technology. Each week, we bring you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You'll gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse of what matters most for your fitness business in the age of exponential technologies. Welcome back to another thought-provoking and entertaining podcast. Today we're learning from Leon Rudge, the Director of Digital Experience at Life Fitness, on the 10 steps to implementing a digital fitness strategy. Now, we've had double digits of expert guests provide so much value over the past 40 plus shows in this category of digital strategy and tools. But on today's show, we're going laser and concise to extract the 10 powerful steps that club owners, operators, and trainers can build from the ground up when they look at the actual technologies in our space that will support them increasing the bottom line and enhancing the customer journey and experience for members. Be sure to tap on your show artwork and explore all the different resources and the white paper links from Leon in the podcast today. And if you've been enjoying the series, leave us a 5-star review. It helps the show reach more intelligent and proactive fitness leaders like yourself. You can also ask Bryan O'Rourke, Leon, or myself, or any of the guests who've been on the show a question by simply typing in your question in the review box. So in an industry who seems to be fairly static and at times even paralyzed by the overinformation about fitness tech, what are the practical and on-the-ground steps that fitness leadership can take to successfully implement a digital fitness strategy? The answer to that question and much more takeaways for club owners, operators, and fitness pros in this episode with Leon Rudge. Leon Rudge is the Director of Digital Experience at Life Fitness. He is part of a global team around digital technology experts who work hard every day to understand how they can bring more clarity, insight, and experience to the fitness industry, their customers, and their exercisers. Leon brings over 7 years of deep experience in the fitness industry, and today we're talking about the 10 steps to implement a digital strategy in your fitness business. Leon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Pleasure to be here.
I want to start off this conversation with a quote actually from a paper that you published, and it was around thriving in a digital fitness age. You mentioned, in terms of digital health and fitness, I see a confused industry, but even worse, I see a number of companies capitalizing on the confusion. The compounded confusion is slowing the adoption of digital tech in our space and leaving us vulnerable to disruptive new market entrants. Can you tell us why you wrote that?
Yeah, I just feel, digital is very new to all of us, very new to us as an industry. And what I see is just mass confusion. I see, confused trainers. I see confused operators. I see confused businesses. And what happens then is that, a number of suppliers or app companies, technology companies, try and capitalize on that and try and declare that their products are, everything that a business is going to need. And it just causes more confusion. For me, digital is very much, it's a business model. It's, soon it will be, just another business function. But right now, everybody's just confusing the message by saying, buy X product and it will be the key to retention and be your answer for the future. And that's not the case. Digital is a number of components. So what happens then is when you have all this confusion is nobody moves. Everyone's static because they're scared to make a mistake. So we don't really seem to be seeing any progress, Josh.
Cutting through messaging is something that you do very well as the Director of Digital Experience, but this is not your first round here in the fitness space. You actually were in the space, you left for a while, you came back, you were a certified programmer at Microsoft, you were a personal trainer. Just give us a snapshot, Leon, of your quick road here into the fitness industry.
Oh, it started many moons ago. Back in the e-commerce days, I headed up a huge development team, just programming e-commerce sites for retailers. Interestingly, we had a very similar situation with with retailers as we have with operators and trainers now, where they were adamant that digital wouldn't be the future and e-commerce wouldn't take over, wouldn't be a viable business option. So we had a similar transformation for retailers. So then I went moved into running my own digital agency from there, so my own web design development agency. Sold that to a telecoms company when telecoms went from analog to digital. So again, had some experience of transformation there. From telecoms, I then went into fitness, set up my own personal trainer, a professional development training company. So kind of like CECs, CPD training. Spotted a niche there and used the web to be able to stack training high and sell it cheap. So quite disruptive there. And then finally moved into free weights, stepped out into the banking world, but didn't really get on there writing software for banks because it's such a compliance-led industry. You can't really innovate, so it's very difficult to do anything really sexy with digital when you work in the banking world. And then the opportunity at Life Fitness came up, which is to be honest, is my dream job. I absolutely love the fitness industry. Working for the industry number one in the digital space, which is my second passion, is just my dream job, and it's an absolute pleasure to be part of that part of the Life Fitness team.
Well, it's pretty obvious because on your LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/digital fit guru. I love that title. I can't believe you picked that. I'm curious, was it taken? Did you have to fight for that?
No, it was there. I felt that, there are a number of gurus in our industry, really great and experienced people. I felt that with my 20 plus years experience and the fact that I've been part of a couple of industries that have digitally transformed, I thought I would lay claim to it. Probably a little bit cheeky, but I think I know my subject matter a little bit.
Well, thanks for sharing with us about your road to be in our space and contribute. I do want to dive into these 10 steps, but one thing that we talked about on a previous meeting is that a lot of people right now are so forward thinking. They're so about living and operating in the future, what devices, what apps, what SaaS platforms are going to be of service, is they're forgetting about the now. Can you talk about how we can stay balanced in this really fast moving world of tech by being in the present moment, being in the now, and then also having the awareness to look to the future?
I think that's a tough one because, as I said, the fitness industry seems to be fairly static. And I think, a lot of operators, some have already gone through it, but, so I talk generally, but, operators and trainers really need to create a culture of to be able to do things quickly, to be able to fail, to be able to fail fast, learn fast and fix fast, And I think, it's okay to fail in the digital world, but you've just got to fail quickly. So I always encourage operators just to start small, test, measure, learn, and then iterate fast. Because if you start doing something, you're going to progress. But we don't really see that now. We just see static. But there's a hell of a lot of growth in digital outside of the fitness industry and nothing happening inside the industry. So it's about that cultural change to change the way you operate as a business. Maybe, be quite aggressive and change your entire business model, but just a culture of innovation, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Gotcha. Well, in this completely fast moving world that we've already mentioned here, the first step is raising awareness. So starting off with our 10 for implementing a digital strategy, raising awareness. Why is this the most important piece? I mean, just because we're aware, does that mean that the rest of the steps will occur? Do we have to have the awareness first?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to get the business to buy in, to be honest with you. When we put this white paper together, it was, again, one of the great things about working for Life Fitness is they afford you the time and support to create something like this, Yeah, and as you know, Josh, reading through it, it's very much not about product. It's very much about helping an industry and showing that, myself and Life Fitness are, our future thinking and here to help. And the raising awareness is always number one, because if you don't have the business on board, then you're really going to struggle. That goes right to the top, right to the C-suite. If you don't have your leadership team on board, and if you don't have the senior teams on board, then you're really going to struggle to create any change within a business. You're going to struggle to get the backing or the support to be able to create a digital transformation strategy. So it's absolutely essential that you get that senior team on board. So it's kind of bottom up, top down, but definitely need to get the senior teams on board first, because then you'll be afforded the time and the freedom to fail Because we're not going to get these things right first time. They're not going to be, really quick. We're not going to become cyborg companies. So,
Sure.
we need to make sure we've got the autonomy to move forward, and that means raising awareness within the business, and getting those teams on board. And within the white paper, the first section of the white paper is everything that you'll need to know to raise the awareness. The impact of digital, what's happening in fitness, the growth of digital fitness as opposed to commercial fitness, and there's a huge hole that needs plugging there.
You bring up a really great point. I'm flashing back to our episode with Robert Dyer, and the title of that podcast was The One Thing That Hasn't Changed in Fitness, and it was around this roadmap. And you talk about this roadmap in the white paper, but you also remind us, Leon, that this is not a quick process. We may ultimately be asking our business to change the way it operates, but that's a daunting task. However, this change does not have to be a completely indecipherable roadmap. What does that beginning stage of the roadmap look like? I know we'll touch on other points here in the digital strategy, but just in the beginning steps of raising awareness and creating the digital team, what might that roadmap look like on stages 1 and 2?
It literally is that. I mean, for raising awareness, it's really just putting your head above the parapet and campaigning internally to, your direct reports, your senior teams, whoever you've got access to, and really asking permission to present your insights, to present the data, to present what's happening to your leadership teams, and actually asking permission to create this digital team and being able to move through these 10 steps. I mean, they're sequential steps. So they're designed to follow one by one. So if you get the thumbs up from the leadership teams to implement a digital strategy, that doesn't necessarily mean you get the thumbs up to execute it, but you can certainly spend a little bit of time to start to understand what the future, your future business would look like. So, once you've got permission to start raising that awareness, it's definitely good to get a digital team together. That consists of a cross-functional team. From finance through to sales, marketing, every department you need to get involved. But I really make quite a firm point in the white paper of, don't forget some of those younger people behind the gym desk or behind the reception desk, because they're probably the best digital minds you can have.
And they have such a powerful voice. I mean, they interact with the members probably the most out of the entire staff. And when we look at discovery, one of the cool things that I see here is there's an asset discovery portion where we're taking a real inventory, a true inventory of all the digital assets. Is that really the most important thing when we look at who are we, what do we do as a club, and why do we do it?
Not really, but it's a good time to do that when you get your team together, because if you can identify the quick wins early on, then you can start executing some of the low hanging fruit before you've even, stepped further. I'm always amazed at, how many membership management systems, for instance, create a coaching and an exerciser app, but don't tell their current customer base, So there's so many things you might have to hand that are already there. So the asset discovery comes in early purely because it's it's about those quick wins.
And it's digital, physical, TV screens. I mean, everything from payment systems to multiple SaaS platforms. We see a lot of people entering the fitness space right now, especially in the technology realm, because there really is a low barrier to get in. But a lot of these companies, a lot of these providers, they've never really worked in the fitness industry. Are you seeing a clear distinction between those that are coming in with a heavy tech background and those that come in with a nice balance of fitness experience and technology?
I'm not really. No, is the honest answer to that, Josh. I see, some of these new market entrants, as I call them. So some of these cloud-based full fitness solutions, they're really good. Timetabling and booking of classes or making appointments with trainers is fairly standard business stuff, as you'll agree. And even down to programming, some of the programming, the fitness programming that we see in the industry is fairly basic. So to replicate that is not too difficult, and a lot of the guys who build these software, a lot of the developers who build these software solutions, they do call upon the industry and the expertise within the industry to to build the programming, the fitness programming facilities. They may be new to the industry, but because they think differently to a traditional business, they know they need to collaborate to be able to provide what the industry needs or what operators and trainers and exercisers need. They know they need a wider team, and it might not necessarily be an employee, but somebody who knows about fitness programming, and they listen to customers. I think that's one of the biggest things that they do differently, is instead of being the expert who is convinced that they know what exercisers want, they actually, and build a training philosophy around that. They actually listen first and then build second.
I think the important piece too that I'm seeing is there is the journey, and then there's also the experience, this omnipresence term that's thrown around a lot. How would you personally define omnipresence when we look at fitness technology?
Again, I'm talking generally, but if I'm discussing going on holiday with my girlfriend, my digital channels are full of adverts of the holiday I've just discussed. If I Google search a particular thing, or my Facebook feed is full of adverts about that particular thing, and I find the fitness industry is pretty slow to the power of omni-channel marketing, digital channel marketing, and part of that is that we only operate in the same space as we ever did before. So because we don't look outside of the fitness industry, we don't really have that kind of omnipresence to be able to work those channels. We do the same traditional things as we've always done. Yeah. The only thing I see less of is people walking around late at night dropping leaflets through the door. I see less of that, but pretty much, and again, speaking generally, pretty much most of commercial fitness is pretty much the same as it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago.
Member-centricity, this is section 4. Member-centricity is the piece that helps fitness facility operators think like a member. I love this. Thinking like an exerciser can help them determine what they need and why they need it. Why is this so pivotal to think like an exerciser?
Yeah, and I think that's, I put that next because, I sit with so many different organizations in the fitness industry who demand, quite passionately tell me what their exercisers want, but a quick challenge of, okay, show me, brings some pretty blank faces back. And at the end of the day, the power of digital and the real trick to digital is customer delight. It's about delighting the member. It's about giving what the member wants. And it's about personalization. So, I'm a big fan of customer journey and customer experience mapping. So basically, we don't make decisions as to what we think they are. And we've got some great minds in this business, people that have worked in the industry for decades. But, the members are changing, society's changing, everything's changing. And some of the things that we put in place aren't necessarily or always going to be right. So what I encourage people to do is firstly customer journey map. And for me, a customer journey map is every touch point a member would have with the business. So whether that's a physical touch point like a person, or a digital touch point, or a technology touch point like a back end system, actually, get some sticky notes and post-its and write those touch points down and slap them on a wall. So you can actually see the journey that your members go through when they interact with your business. I call that a customer journey map, which is sometimes confused with a customer experience map. And the customer experience map extends the customer journey map by asking how we think the member feels, or asking the member how they feel at that point. So if you imagine you've got a room in your gym, you've got 20 post-its running from left to right, and they're the customer journey the journey that your members go through as they interact with your gym. Bring a few members in. Say, how do you feel at that point? What's your challenges at that point? And start to understand how they feel. What are their emotions when they're interacting with your business? And the key thing here is, if there's any part of that customer experience which is not great, which doesn't delight the member, you've got to fix it. And that's where you look at your assets from the previous section to say, okay, do we have anything that we can quick fix to turn that customer dislike into customer delight?
Wow, Leon, you're bringing such value right here, and we're scratching the surface. This is a 2-part white paper, so we're just talking about the tip of the iceberg here. I want to point out to the audience too, really salient point, the customer experience is based around emotion, which could be facilitated through surveys. The journey is all about action. So I love that distinction you made, and maybe even having a large board with some Sharpies and an executive management team meeting where you literally map it out using Sharpies.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, definitely, that's why we've got our digital team. And if you've raised awareness and got your senior teams on board, then, why not get into a room for, I would suggest getting into a room, cell phones off, laptops out, like you said, a bunch of Sharpies, a bunch of sticky notes, and literally fill the walls.
This is so powerful for people listening. Thank you for mentioning that. Now, the next piece, I shook my head a little bit. Destroy the business. Step number 5, destroy your own business. Destroying your business answers the question, how can your business be disrupted by digital technology? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite piece, Josh, really, because so many businesses go from day to day just doing what they've always done, and they don't really look over their shoulder. So destroy your own business is a way of looking over your shoulder. In my world, it's sometimes it gets called the ruthless competitor, but in my world, the digital world, it's about saying, how can a digital technology company disrupt my business? But then answering that question with, okay, how can we deliver that at value? So with destroy your own business, you'd get your team together and you'd think of anything that, and I try to get people to do a little exercise. So I try and get people to think, with unlimited budget, a huge development team, so they've got all the resources and all the money they need.
Yeah.
What would they do? What would your team of people create? From the wild and wacky and futuristic as they can think to the really quite sane and normal things that they think they need now. And then you take that whole list of things that you would do with your unlimited budget and unlimited resource, and you just red, amber, green it. So you read something that's completely wacky and probably not going to happen within the next 24 months. If it's amber, it's something that probably could happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And if it's green, it's something that your competition could do, something that your a digital technology company could do. So really, that's an opportunity for them to disrupt you and to compete against you. So really, you're disrupting yourself to be able to maintain competitive advantage. But you also get continuous improvement from that. So again, you would go back to your asset discovery, figure out where you're weak. So what are your greens? Plug in that gap with what you've already got. And if you haven't got it, you've got to think seriously about plugging the gap with that vulnerability.
And I think this pushes up against a big paradigm too, because a lot of people try to own something. They own the space instead of sharing the value and being more open-minded and thinking this step, destroy your own business. I believe based on what we've talked about, this might be the most challenging one for club operators and owners. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's tough. And absolutely. And it's something that member centricity or experience mapping and destroying your own business are the two rarest things I see, but the two most powerful and two really easy. With destroy your own business, you've got to do it with a tight group as well. Your digital team has to be a trusted team. So within the digital team, I also talk about having an extended team, which includes your suppliers, but you wouldn't necessarily bring them into this space because you're going to start really getting under the hood of your business and figuring out, actually, we've got a huge hole there. If a digital technology company or or your competition decide to do what you've identified as that could destroy your business, then, you could potentially start having some weakness there. So it's my favorite thing to do as well, because it's difficult. It's difficult to get around the table and actually do it. And you don't really wake up in the morning and go, oh, today I'm going to be the ruthless competitor. I'm going to destroy my own business.
And, creating the vision is obviously it's step 6 here in the white paper, but it really speaks to a very important part, which is if you can't articulate your vision, how are you supposed to motivate and inspire a team to follow you?
Yeah.
Creating the vision in the digital world, much different than on pen and paper and just shoulder to shoulder. How would you formulate a vision for fitness and tech? How do you go about that?
Well, I just think you need to figure out, what you want to be in the next 5 years. So it's kind of like just setting your compass. There's no real set way of doing it. It's just you've just got to get down and work with your digital team and figure out where you want to be in 5 years' time. So what does that look like? And it might suggest, you might have something like a statement of what you want to be, and then possibly how you're going to do it. So it might be, we want 90% of bookings to be done on mobile. We want to interact with 60% of our employees, 60% of our members via mobile and digital channels, by a certain date. So you want to give yourself a delivery date on it, and you end up with about two paragraphs of what the future you looks like. So it's kind of like it's about setting your true north and saying, this is where we want to be. This is the stake in the ground. This is what the future business looks like.
I want to pause here and go back to the beginning of our conversation when I mentioned your previous experience, working in marketing and being someone who was in that realm for a while. How do you think that applied to what you do now with digital experience? It's obviously a big compliment.
It is, but and it was quite interesting because, back in the day, we used to put together, we called it rapid application development back then. We used to try and solve problems really quickly. So as telecoms, for instance, was digitally transforming, as e-commerce, started to become a thing, we used to move really, really quickly because we could see these changes happening really quickly. So we learned a lot of lessons then, but it's a lot easier now. Back then, we had to code everything line by line. So if somebody said, we want to create an e-commerce site, and we'd like to, even back in the day, just to take a credit card payment would take 2 or 3 days to hand code. So the great thing about now is that we have so many off-the-shelf tools to hand, so many platforms that we can piggyback on, classic example being Facebook. It's actually a lot easier. It's definitely crowded, and it's definitely a minefield. But if you focus on your vision and you focus on where you want to be, it's quite easy to look at, okay, we want to create this experience. I always encourage operators to start with the experience. What I find in the fitness industry is that everybody starts with the technology. So they start with the technology and then figure out what experience they're going to get from that. They buy, some kind of digital technology, and then they try and figure out what to do with it. But if you've got a vision, you know why you've got something, why you've purchased it, and you know what experience it's going to provide. So I always encourage operators to start with the experience and work backwards. And that's something we never used to talk. So 20 years ago, we didn't talk about experiences. We just used to literally, when my first programming days, we would try and replicate shopping malls visually. But then we realized that actually the digital business is a lot different from the physical business, but it does replicate it. So learned so many lessons back in the day. And the biggest thing that's come through from that is speed, agility, the ability to fail fast, but to very much to think of the customer first. So that customer centricity was something that we didn't do. We used to build websites and e-commerce sites as the retailer wanted it, as opposed to how the customer would use it. And that's where people like Amazon did really well and shone through.
Really big takeaway. Start with the experience, which again, we've talked about based on emotion, based on how the customer is feeling in the process, and then work backwards. In step 7, you talk about creating the strategy. I really want to talk about these soft KPIs and how that might plug into strategy.
Strategy here is about, okay, we know the vision. We know where we want to be. We know what we need to do. So the strategy here is about, how we're going to do that. And attached to strategy, I've also got the tactics in there. So you basically create an executable roadmap. You've done so much work with your MembersCentricity, with destroying your own business. You've got your greens. You know the things you need to achieve now. You know the vision and how the greens from the destroy your own business are going to get you to that vision. And the strategy is simply saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is who's involved. It's an executable roadmap of who's going to do it, who's involved, how much it's going to cost, when we need to do it by, And then we just keep ticking those boxes off, so we start to move further towards that vision.
This is exactly what we talked about when Jamie Cole came on the podcast, when we were mentioning the Fit Connect, working through this member experience based on emotion, but also with a nice, hard strategy. In that strategy piece, is there a few or a handful of soft KPIs that we can really look at?
Again, they probably relate to the vision and what you're trying to achieve, but I'm a massive fan of soft KPIs. They probably come in a little bit more in the next section, but a soft KPI would be something like, okay, if your gym has an app, a soft KPI would be something like, let's talk about the membership sales team, for instance. I can guarantee they have a revenue target, but also if the gym has an app, they should also have a soft KPI, a few soft KPIs of something like, every single membership inquiry that comes into the gym, so any walk-ins, any appointments, they need to download the app, they need to register, and we want 96% of new business inquiries and new member inquiries to download the app and connect with a membership sales team, because then even if they don't buy there and then on that day, you've still got a communication channel with them, something you can market to. For the gym team, it might be something like you want 10 new personal training clients booked in via the app. It's about thinking of what we need to do to engage in that digital. This is the biggest challenge that our industry has, because our industry goes out and looks at the market, gets sold to suppliers talking about digital, but it really doesn't matter what you put into a gym. It probably is or could be the coolest digital out there or the coolest digital technology products out there. But if your business doesn't know how to engage in it, or from a vision perspective, why it's engaging in it, then it's just going to fail. And I find it a little bit crazy in our industry, because you wouldn't say subscribe to a new studio class without training your staff on how to, work to the music, how to promote it. You fill the gym with the marketing. So, but for some reason with digital technology, and I think it comes back to the fear, we just think if we build it, they will come, and it just doesn't work like that.
Yes, this is not Field of Dreams.
Exactly. So you've got to get those soft KPIs in, and they need to go right across the board. And right up to the general managers within the facility, so they're accountable for those KPIs.
We're getting to the end of the white paper here. Just a few more points. One of them in the last piece is creating the digital core. This is the final piece of the puzzle before you tell the business about the intentions and commitments. Explain to us the digital core piece as we move forward.
Yeah, that's very much about that's very much about becoming a digital first company. So that's where those soft KPIs would really kick in this digital core. This is about knowing where you want to go. And actually, I find with the fitness industry that digital is a core, a fringe strategy. So we think of our commercial strategy, our business strategy, and we sit there and we create our objectives, our strategy and our tactics, and we align that to the vision. We probably do that every year. We communicate that to the business, we reset the compass if it's needed, and we head towards that. But we forget about digital in that. We don't say, okay, we're feeling some pressure from some of these Instagram and social media and Facebook trainers. How do we bring that into the core strategy? How do we bring our social media activities into the core strategy? What about a YouTube channel? Are we putting content on YouTube? Are we becoming a production company as well as a gym? So it's about saying, okay, we've got a core strategy, which is how our business functions, but we're leaving digital as an afterthought. So we've got to drag that in as part of the core strategy. So when we say we are going to do X as a business, we need to make sure somebody says, and how does that work digitally? What does the digital channel look like?
Thank you for bringing such clarity here. This is one of the most comprehensive lists I've seen. We are going to link this in the show notes at lifefitness.com/blog. I want to talk about the last two very quickly here, and it's communicating the vision and doing it again.
Yeah. So the communicate this is the point where you come out into the open and, and tell the business. This is about putting some theater behind it. So, if you've got, kind of point 6, point 7, and the leadership team have said, yes, we're going to do this, so if you've got to vision and you've got to strategy, you've delivered that strategy to the senior teams and they've gone, yeah, absolutely, this is the future for our business. There's going to come a point when you need the rest of the business to come with you. You're going to need them. You're going to need their help, to change the culture. You're going to need people to think digital first. So you bring that strategy into the core. So it's about communicating that to the business with some theater. So don't just send an email around saying, hey, we've now got a digital strategy and Leon's going to head that up. Any questions, just ask. Let's get some fanfare behind that. Let's stick a stake in the ground and make a commitment to the business that our vision is how our business will operate in the next 2 to 3 years.
I can see a medium-sized club or even a studio looking at this list and it being so impactful for them. So thank you for creating this. And this is the last part of the show. It's 6 fast questions for Leon. Are you ready?
Oh, I think so.
What's been one of the biggest failures? Well, I simply like to call them lessons that you've learned in our industry so far.
Definitely starting with the technology. So just, buying something that you don't really know what you're going to do with it.
What is the most enjoyable thing you see that you experience personally at the crossroad of fitness and tech? In other words, what do you enjoy about this intersection?
Oh, the future, a vision of the future. I see a great, super efficient customer delight industry. I'm really, really excited for the now, and I'm excited for the future.
What does your personal favorite piece or platform of fitness tech look like? Do you have a wearable or a platform that helps you in your health and wellness journey?
I am a Polar user, actually. I like to get out and run about outdoors. So I'm a Polar user. I sync that up. I use FitConnect, and I sync that to my obviously my LF Connect account. It's easy for me to say, but I'm a huge fan of smart connected fitness equipment. I love to use a treadmill, and I love to be able to connect to that treadmill and watch House of Cards.
I would not expect anything less from Digital Fit Guru. Next question here is around mentorship. So many of us have mentors, and you are a mentor to many, but who's been a mentor for you or a colleague that's helped you grow?
A number of the guys at Life Fitness. Definitely a lot of the senior teams. Jason Worthy, who's our VP of Fitness Solutions, has absolutely been a great mentor over the last few years. Frank Van de Ven, who is our VP International, has been great support. Our new president, Jamie Irick, is very, very digitally minded, and absolute pleasure to sit and listen to. When it comes to digital, but there really is probably too many to mention, Josh. But Jason's been a massive advocate over the last 4 or 5 years while I've been at Life Fitness, and in terms of mentorship, has been great for me. Absolutely.
Do you have a book, or maybe many books, a few that you could share with us that have given you insight into having a growth mindset and being able to roll with the changes?
I've got so many, if I'm honest with you. I'm an avid reader. I've got 11 magazine subscriptions. I probably read a book every week or two, which to some people is quite slow, but to me that's quite quick. There's a number of books, but I think probably the best one that anyone can read that I can advise, is a great read is The Lean Startup. I think it kind of frames disruptive innovation in a great way. So that there's too many to mention, Josh, but that one's a great read.
Well, we'll link that again in our notes too. I know everyone's always looking for a book that will give them something tactical they can do. Yeah. Last question, Leon. This has been such a fun conversation with a lot of takeaways. One of the best interviews we've had around really taking specific actions. When we look at the future, you've talked about being in the now and also having the vision to see the future. What does this intersection of fitness and technology truly mean to you right now?
I think now is the greatest opportunity that the commercial fitness industry has ever had to grow. And I think we really need to take that bull by the horns. And I think it's although it seems quite scary and daunting, it's not. And I think, as long as you're happy to fail fast, learn fast and fix fast, just dive in at the deep end, because we've got to embrace the future. When you see what some of these big tech giants or monsters are putting together, as an industry, we got to learn to be able to share value, to be able to collaborate, and be able to make sure we don't end up interoperable. But it's such a good opportunity for us.
Thank you so much, Leon, for sharing your expertise and knowledge with us. If you're listening on your iPhone, simply tap your show notes right now. You can get access to our full show notes from Leon and the white paper. Leon, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Josh. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Leon shares that digital is a massive revenue-generating category, but it's also important not to get too hung up on this fact in the early months of your journey. You'll need to learn before you can earn, and if you put earnings first, you'll blind yourself to the fact that you're actually just trying to understand how to fundamentally change the way you interact with your members and they interact with your business. You'll figure out the revenue models soon enough after you've done the deeper work and the 10 steps towards implementing a digital fitness strategy. In terms of digital health and fitness, Leon sees a confused industry, but even worse, he sees a number of companies capitalizing on the confusion. This compounded confusion he sees slowing the adoption of digital tech in our space and leaves us vulnerable to disruptive new market entrants. What we must do as an industry is seek clarity about what tech will serve, why we do, and how we want to do it. Getting clear on the customer journey and experience before ever selecting a piece of technology will help operators and owners transcend the confusion. When it comes to creating a successful and sustainable digital fitness strategy in the club, knowing more about your digital self than you ever have before is an important context. Operators and trainers must create a culture of being able to fail fast, learn fast, and fix fast to innovate and thrive in the digital world. It's important to remember that it's okay to fail in our digital space, but you've just got to fail quickly. Leon encourages operators, owners, and trainers to start small, then test, measure, and learn to iterate fast. Thank you for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Here's a quick message from Bryan O'Rourke.
Hello, everyone. This is Bryan O'Rourke. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I also want to extend our thanks to Josh and the many, many wonderful professionals who've contributed their time and expertise for free for the health club and fitness industry at large. Wouldn't you like your fitness brand, product, or service to be featured on a podcast like this? I know I would. And that's why the Fitness Industry Technology Council, myself, and our companies like Moon Mission Media, Baderi Ventures, and Vertimax, among others, have been underwriting the podcast for the last 9 months. Check the show notes for details and consider becoming a sponsor. It's a great way to reach thousands of industry professionals in the fitness and health club space and be a part of educating people on technology adoption and all the opportunities it's going to provide. So please consider joining us here at the podcast, and we look forward to the many series of podcasts ahead. Thanks so much.